And I have the pleasure of introducing the audience to Reverend Betty Tatalajski, founder of the Temple of Universality. And I believe that today's subject is appropriate for this time of year, subject of love. Isn't that what it is?
Yes. Every day, of course, is, but there are just certain times that seem to be more on your mind and in your heart. And May, of course, is one of them, in the spirit of the Blessed Mother. And that's the mother of all of us, regardless of what we call, if we're talking about the Blessed Mother Mary or the Mother Spirit of Kuan Yin. All of this is a part of us, and we celebrate that. But I just, when I get to this in nostalgia and appreciation, I go back to February, because it's that Aquarian spirit, and of course we're in this Aquarian age, and the times are a change, and as the hippies used to say, it's going to change. Well, it has, and it's so the month of innovation and inventions and this electrical energy, that has created all of the cell phones and so forth. But it comes wrapped in love, and so we call it the month of the Valentine heart, And I always think about that being an experience that I had in Philadelphia. I was it was March. I'm sorry, February. It was February, and a couple of years ago, and my teachers, spirit teacher, said to me, "Betty, we want you to go to Philadelphia for 2 weeks and spend some time with your sister-in-law, Margie, whom I really loved and I hadn't seen for quite a while." And so I thought, well, that's a wonderful assignment, not only the spirit of my beautiful sister-in-law, but Philadelphia, which I love, and the Philly steak sandwiches. And,
That's right. Philadelphia health food.
Oh, health food, and heart food. So anyway, I was delighted to go, and so the first morning that I'm there, we have visited that night, and when I get up in the morning, I just took my pillow off the bed and I sat down on the floor, and I'm going to in my 30-minute meditation. Well, I wasn't very long in meditation when my brother-in-law came in. Now they said, Margie was in a lot of pain, physical pain, but she was actually more in emotional pain and depressed, because she and Tony Anthony had been, married a long time. Her husband, and he had died, and so along with the pain, it just pushed her down into it, and it just seemed hopeless. So anyway, I sit ready to sit in my meditation, and one of my teachers comes in and says, "Betty, write this," and her husband said yes. Now, her husband was no more a poet than I am, but he was given the words also. And so he came in, and this is what he said. A Valentine from the grave is what I call it.
And this is to his wife.
This is to his wife, because I didn't know this is what I was sent for, but I found out.
Okay.
And he says, "If I could reach through the veil and touch your face, I would. If I could hold you in sweet embrace, I'd kiss you if I could. Know that I am with you each and every day, and that I hear the words you speak every time you pray. It isn't for me to say who stays and who shall go, but please don't live your life in looking back with woe.
Wow.
For life is for the living, as both you and I are. Remember, I didn't die, and I didn't go very far. I'll always be right by your side, just as you were there for me. With your loving, happy thoughts, you can set me free. Look to God and lift your face and gaze up at the sun, and feel my love in those rays. Your new life has begun. Thank yourself for all the good and kindness you've done. Give yourself a pat on the back. What a great race you've run. Be kind to yourself like you are to others. Turn away from sorrow and strife. For I love you now as I did then when you first became my wife. So I thought, well, this is a beautiful Valentine for her. And she was having a birthday soon in February. So I started to get up. My 30 minutes is gone. And Spirit says, no, we have a couple more poems for you.
Okay.
They had a couple of children and also a grandchild. And so actually 2 granddaughters. And they said, we have another one here. So this is the second one, okay? And this, he says, is a poem for Terry and Tommy. To my children with love. I went above, but I never died. Don't let anyone say I did, for in hearing that, I cried. How could I separate from you when you are life to me? Let me see the smiles on your face as you hug each other in glee. Laugh and love and hug those kids like I would if I could. Now he mentions babci, and that's Polish for grandmother.
Okay.
Tell them babci's here with me now, and we know that they've been good. Grandpop's here, and he's proud and happy as he can be. He's always been there helping, even though we couldn't see. So know that we're all together and we celebrate your life. Give each other a hug and kiss, and please include my wife, because this is a poem for Terry and Tommy. You know how I love to sing, what a happy heart I had. Well, please, when you think of me, celebrate and be glad. The only time that I have heard people sad is when we think that they have died and left us.
Sure. It's abandonment.
It's abandonment,
Yeah.
yes. Well, there was also a third one. I didn't bring it,
Okay.
but it mentioned, thank you for putting the flag on my grave. He had been in the military in the Second World War. And only the week before, she had taken a flag and put it on his gravesite. Now, when I went over to the grave, there it was. And she says, oh, I brought this over last week. Well, he mentions it in his poem. So I was pleased, to...
Sure.
It took me less than an hour to write this dictation. And so I went downstairs where she had the coffee ready, and we sat. And so I told her where I'd been,
Betty. Yeah, and what had happened?
What I'd been sitting beside the bed up there and taking dictation from her husband, Tony. And so, she loved me enough to like me instead, and in spite of the fact that she thought I had, gone round the bend. So it's interesting, too, because she received our newsletter every month, and she really appreciates, she saved them all. She saved them all. And it's interesting, if you don't have a frame of reference, you don't seem to ponder on things. You just say, well, that's the way it is, and it doesn't have to make sense. Well, my beautiful sister-in-law went to Mass probably every morning. She lived about 100 yards from the church there in Philly. And so she went there all the time now in the morning. And, it's wonderful to go to church, and it's wonderful to be in the spirit of the Blessed Mother and her Son and all of this. But, when you are kneeling there every morning and as Spirit says to me, cursing your heart.
Sure, disconsolate.
What they told me was, because I was a Catholic for a long time and I love Catholicism. And you say mea culpa, which says I am not worthy. And Spirit says to me, that is the denial of your divinity, and it's also a curse on your life.
Yeah.
So instead of celebrating. And so she was so, I would say, inculcated with this
Creed, with this belief system.
with this creed and belief
the
system,
yeah.
that Tony's poems to her couldn't compete with that.
Sure.
And so she appreciated that I had come and
that's
made
right.
up these poems.
Well, these wonderful little stories to make her feel better.
Make her feel better.
Right, to set her at ease.
Well, anybody that knows me knows I'm not a poet.
Yes.
But I can take dictation when Spirit is giving it to me in my ear, you know, and speaking so clearly. So anyway, I tried to explain that to her since she had been reading our newsletters for years, you know, and had them all stacked up here. She apparently appreciated the fact that she got them, but she didn't have to believe them, you know, and she just thought they were, I guess, fairy tales, you know. But anyway, my beautiful, beautiful sister-in-law couldn't grasp that. It couldn't penetrate through, and it couldn't compete with what she's doing every morning. You know, saying, "I'm so sorry, you can't," you know. Of course, Spirit.
I deserve this.
I deserve
this.
Yes, and you left me. Okay. So there's a little blame in her too.
That's right.
But this thing about Bobchi, you know, I lived in Philadelphia a couple of times, probably 2 years added together, and I love it, of course. And my son was privy to the love of my mother-in-law. I have said often that I have met two living saints, one my mother-in-law and one my mother. And Spirit says, well, you're not wrong, because they are. Anyway, my son had the love of his babci, his Polish grandmother. And so it was wonderful to be with her. It was sad that she could not
receive
grasp
it.
And in a couple of years, she did make transition. I don't know, but I think of that at Valentine's, Tony's Valentine gift to his wife. Three of these beautiful poems. I tried to explain to her that, you know, that it really was true, but I couldn't be insistent. I mean, everybody has the right to their own, and you know, their
belief system,
through their own belief system. So. Anyway, it was in the third one, he's talking about the flowers that she has just planted in the backyard, and there they were. She was showing them to me. And he's telling her, I see you. I'm there in those rays. I'm looking at you, and I want you to be happy. But it was interesting because shortly after that, when I was at Camp Chesterfield, my mother-in-law, Juliana, for whom my older granddaughter is named, came in and talked to me. And she said, you know, Betty, I'm not a saint, but every time you said something nice about me, I get a blessing here in spirit. That's another lesson that I didn't know, that thinking good thoughts is a blessing. Saying good words is a blessing. And they're true. But she says, but I get a blessing over here every time you've mentioned, you know, that I was a good person. Well, she was a saint, I believe. But anyway, then my father-in-law came in. I had never met him. He died when my husband was 14 years old. Well, of course I didn't know him, but he knew me. And he said, well, I've known you for a long time. We just haven't met like this, okay?
Like this.
Well,
yeah, I understand.
I had this grandson, my younger grandson, Anthony, who was named after him, a man whom I had never met. And so I was kind of concerned about Anthony because the older grandson, almost 2, he was very inquisitive, loved his brother beyond belief, but I was afraid he was going to twist his head off, you know. He was kind of rough with him, you know. I mean, and so he said, don't worry about the baby. And my mother-in-law came in, Juliana came in and said, oh, Betty, don't worry about it. Said as Anthony stands there all the time along with these Indians and all those guides that work with little Tony, we called him, you know. So don't worry about him, which was lovely.
Yeah.
You know, it took a lot off here because
You were concerned.
absolutely,
Yeah.
because you
Sure.
know the little boy
Yeah.
was bigger,
Older, yeah.
older and bigger,
Yeah, you never-
inquisitive,
yeah.
and loved his.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a doll.
Sure,
You know, he
yeah.
just adored him. But he said, "Oh no," he says, "No, it's good. It's all." He said, "You think I would let anything happen to my godchild,
Yeah.
to my
Yeah.
this my namesake?" He said. So he said, He said, "Now, Betty, I have something. I want to ask you to do me a favor, okay?" And I find it really hard to say no to people that are coming through this trumpet and talking to me directly from what we perceive to be heaven, you know. And I just have a real hard time saying no to that, you know. And then once you say it, you have to do it. You know, it's not like your friends here.
Sure.
Sometimes
That's right.
you say something
Yeah,
to agree
yeah,
with them, and
yeah.
then say, well, they'll forgive me. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, he said, you know, gave me a name, and he said, this person is ill. I didn't even know the person was ill, a friend here, you know. He says, would you do a novena for that person? And I'm thinking, now, my mother-in-law, my sainted mother-in-law, went just about every night and did novenas. I never asked her what it was. I knew it was a good thing, and I knew that she was, you know,
Dedicated.
so
Yeah.
dedicated to the Blessed Mother
Yeah.
that whatever she's asking, you know, is going to happen. But I never asked her how she did it,
Yeah.
and I certainly never asked to go along with her, you know. So anyway, he says, would you do a novena for this person? So I come back, and I've got to do a novena, you know, and I didn't know how, and I had been Catholic all this time, but you know, like a lot of Catholics, I loved, you know, the spirit of it and all this, but I never talked to them directly because they didn't talk to me, you know. So now I'm a spiritualist, and I know, you know, all of this is so real, so very real. But anyway, here I have promised. So I come back, and I'm thinking, how do you do a novena? So it just happened that the beautiful church there at Country Club and Speedway, that Catholic church, you could just go in and out. Now because of insurance, they keep it locked and all of that, you know, and give you a card to get in. Anyway, so I said, well, I'll go stop on the way to work. So I did, and there was a nun walking in there, and she says, you know, can I help you? And like in a grocery store, you know. And I was used to church on Sunday,
Yeah.
you know, not a Monday morning.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I need to do a novena, and you know, and I need to know how to do that. So she just 60 seconds later, she comes back and she hands me the paper and shows me, you know, where to kneel and so forth. And so I did this novena. She says, now you do it for 9 days, okay? So for 9 days, I did this. I stopped, I said the prayer. On the 9th day, that afternoon, I was at work. I got a phone call from this person that I had been doing the novena for. And they said, well, you know, I really haven't been well. I've been under the weather and all of this, but today I'm feeling so much better, and I just wanted to call and say hi. How are you?
Yeah.
So that was proof that it worked. Now, in case you believe in accidents, coincidences, and so forth, you can keep that thought if you want. It isn't true. There are no accidents. There are no coincidences in all of creation. As a matter of fact, Spirit says, if there were even a coincidence, if that were true, all of creation would implode. But everything is under law. Everything acts under law. And so what I found out was that novenas work. And so I have willingly and gratefully done a lot. And I do suggest to people that since it works, you might want to do it, especially if you have illness of the heart, illness, pain in your life, emotionally, physically, your mind, whatever. I have never seen it fail, okay? I had occasion later, another time, to do this for a friend, and that was even more interesting, as we say. And I'd like to share that one sometime, but because it was miraculous. But we think that things are hopeless. We think that we are helpless, and we are given these gifts. The beloved Son of the Blessed Mother says, as a person thinks it is, that the Bible is interpreted as a man thinks it is, but also a woman, whatever we think it is, we create it, because all of the universe is waiting for our input. But what I really love is that we're never alone, and that so many are trying to elevate us into higher levels of consciousness and love and peace before we make transition.
You know, Betty, listening to you tell a story, and the image of Margie and Tony, and this is
The family,
beautiful family. A death happens.
Yes.
All right, as it does.
Yes.
As it does. Now, and what happens is the self recoils from this because it sees it as a tragedy. Because our perception of life is that you're born into life, you die out of life, and you basically disappear.
And we're taught that.
We're taught that. And if you're taught that if you do disappear, then you're probably going to be judged horribly, because who lives a perfect life?
Right.
The image of the Nazarene, of Jesus the Christ, was not put there as an image of love and allowance and support.
Right.
It's like it's put in front of us as a measure of which we're going to fail.
Yes.
All right?
Oh, yes, it's set up that way.
It's set up that way, all right? And so what happens is that rather than the message of love, acceptance, life eternal, and in abundance, we are given an image of where we are going to fail, and this is just our lot in life.
Right.
And the beautiful thing about what the temple teaches in its precepts is that simply, this is not true.
It's not true.
We believe it to be true, and because we believe it to be true, we will experience it to be true.
Yes, we will experience it to be true, because whatever a man thinks it is,
it becomes, all right? And that falls in line with us as creators.
Yes.
And that falls in line with the biblical statement that we were created in the image of God, who is the creator itself.
Right.
And because we are creators as our father and mother is,
right,
then we also have that power to create.
And Daryl, I was surfing the television today, and I was hearing in Washington. We were in Washington there, and they were talking about creeds, and each one was political leader was trying to out-Christian the other.
Sure, right.
Now, this was supposed to be a monthly breakfast, and it was all about Christianity, who's a better Christian.
Yes.
I do give Barack Obama credit for implying that Muslims were not wrong, that other religions were not wrong. So,
well,
universality is the way it is.
Universality. And thank you once again, Reverend Betty Tatalajski. And this is A Point of View, 11 o'clock, Sunday, Temple of Universality, the corner of Prince and Tucson.